So, Secretary Raimondo, we know you're over in Europe talking with leaders of business and of government to really sort out the economic relations, trade relations between Europe and the United States. Give us an insight in that. The biggest news today was actually the resolution, it appears, of the Airbus-Boeing dispute. I know that's not your jurisdiction. That is actually the trade representatives, Ambassador Tai. But what effect might that resolution have on American jobs, something I know is very important to you?
Yes, thank you, and good morning. So that is big news, as you say. It is a long-running 16, 17-year trade dispute, and will have an increase in jobs on both sides of the Atlantic. But even more than that, it is proof that, as the president says, America is back, and we are back in the business of working with our allies here in Europe to solve problems. So that's just one example of the work that is yet to come.
So tell us about the larger canvas here of the work that you're getting done over there. And let me ask you another specific, which is aluminum and steel tariffs. That's been pending. Is there any estimate of when that might get resolved?
Yeah. So first, let me say the mood here is very optimistic and, quite frankly, very relieved. I have spent 2 days meeting with my counterparts here and just came from the summit with President Biden. And we've been warmly received, and people are ready to get to work with America, honoring our longstanding partnership. As it relates to the tariffs, the Trump administration put those in place, as I have said on a number of occasions. In a way, they've been very helpful in protecting our steel industry and our steel workers. But we want to stay at the table with the EU to try to resolve the tariffs while also dealing with the real problem here, which is overcapacity of excess steel and aluminum, mostly driven by China. So we're going to work as hard as we can between now and December 1st to see if we can come up with a resolution. Why that timeline? Because the EU has suspended the retaliatory tariffs for the next 6 months, and that gives us some breathing room in order to see if we can make progress.
As you know, Madam Secretary, excess steel capacity has been a problem in the world for a long time. Are you hopeful you can make enough progress with Europe, at least, by December 1 to actually take those tariffs off?
I am hopeful. We have to be realistic. This is complicated. It's a complex issue. Steel is a critical industry in America, and our steel workers are obviously vitally important to us. Having said that, I've just spent hours in meetings with my counterparts here. They are committed to finding a solution, as are we. And the president has directed all of us to really reinvigorate our relationships with our allies in the EU. So we're going to work as hard as we can. And at this point, I'm optimistic. It's in both of our interests. I think whether it's trade, technology, cybersecurity, steel and aluminum tariffs, semiconductors, it's in our mutual best interests to work with our allies to find solutions.
Well, on finding solutions, I want to come back to something that the president has emphasized time and time again, Ambassador Tai has, you have, which is jobs, and putting really jobs and creation and maintenance of U.S. jobs at the center of U.S. trade policy. Typically, we think of there as being a trade-off. Protectionism creates jobs, but it really damages trade. Is it a trade-off? What can you do over there in Europe that will actually facilitate trade and create jobs back in the United States at the same time?
Yeah, so it's not a trade-off insofar as in the long run, we have to create jobs. We have to grow both of our economies. We also have to recognize they're different kinds of jobs, which is why we need to really have a focus on reskilling, both in the EU and in America. But what I would say is if you think about technology and the digital economy, massive job creation will occur in the EU and America in the coming years in the digital economy. If it's incumbent upon America and the EU, which have shared values, to set the rules of the road. And we certainly don't want countries like China setting the rules of the road. So if you think about artificial intelligence or the digital economy, America and Europe, which share the same values around privacy protection, for example, we need to set the standards and the rules of the road, which will promote job growth and also do it in a way which is consistent with our values across the Atlantic.
One of the things, Madam Secretary, that is getting in the way of U.S. jobs right now is some supply chain problems, specifically semiconductors, although not limited to semiconductors. I know you're part of the President's task force with Secretaries Buttigieg and Vilsack. When do we expect to make some progress on that? And are you working on that over in Europe with your European counterparts?
Yes, we are. We had extensive discussions last night and today about semiconductors. This is another perfect example where we have shared interest and there's job creation opportunity. Right now, both America and Europe are facing a supply shortage in semiconductors, and quite frankly, we are both vulnerable insofar as we're overly reliant on Asia for too much of our supply of semiconductors. So if we can reshore semiconductor manufacturing to America or to our allied countries in Europe, it protects our supply chain, increases our supply, and creates jobs. So that is an area we're working on every day, all day, every day. You know, you can't do anything without semiconductors. If you think about from the moment you woke up this morning until the moment you go to bed, you're relying on semiconductors. And so this is a top focus. We are making progress, and I'm leaving Europe extremely confident that we'll be able to work with the EU and our allies on this topic.
So explain that if you can, Madam Secretary. I understand how reshoring to the United States of semiconductor production, design and production, would really help our supply chain here. How would reshoring to Europe, how would we make sure that we had access to those semiconductors being manufactured over in Europe?
Well, Europe are longstanding allies. I think we can all agree that we much prefer to be reliant on a factory in Europe than in China, in Europe than in other places around the world. So, you know, our primary focus, of course, is making semiconductor chips in America, creates jobs, and it's on our shore. But as between having semiconductor operation in, you know, France or Germany or another European country and Taiwan or China, I think that, there's clear value to shoring up the resources we have in our allied countries.
Madam Secretary, you've mentioned China a couple of times. It's been mentioned also, for example, by EU Commission President Ms. van der Leyen just yesterday with respect to raw materials. Talk about China and U.S. jobs specifically, and let's come back for a moment, if we can, to Boeing. One of the things that we could do to create jobs in the United States is for Boeing to be able to sell 737s into China in a way that they've not been able to do. Is that on the agenda? When you talk to your counterparts at China, is that something we're talking with them about?
It is. It is. I think that with respect to China, we will continue to do business with them, and that is in our interest. You know, we have a tremendous amount of exports to China, and that's important for American businesses and American jobs. And so we need to, agree where we can find agreement and do business in all possible ways with China. However, we also have to protect Americans and American workers and American national security. And I think the best thing that we can do in that regard is invest in America. You know, the best thing we can do is for Congress to pass President Biden's American Jobs Package so we can invest in American job training, apprenticeships, infrastructure, semiconductors, and also to work in concert with our allies, as I said, so democratic countries are writing the rules of the road around emerging technologies. It's complex. The relationship with China is complex, and I think the most important thing to do is run faster in America with our allied countries.
Well, the CEO of Boeing, Mr. Calhoun, wants to run faster, specifically in making planes for China. Is that an area where you think you might get the most, if I can put it that way, bang for the buck when it comes to jobs, if you could open that up in China?
We're working on it. You know, we're absolutely working on it. I've spoken to Dave Calhoun, and hopefully today is a good day for him with the new announcement. But as I said, it's not just airplanes. It's China's a big market, and we have to make sure American companies can do business there and export there.
And finally, Madam Secretary, talk to us about TikTok, WeChat. There's a review going on right now. Can you give us a sense of the timeline on that review, when you might have a decision, and whether, in fact, you might reimpose or extend the ban that had come from the Trump administration?
So, like everything as relates to China, the administration is doing a kind of a top-to-bottom review, so I don't have a specific timeline per se. It's all part of the strategy of protecting America, national security interest and economic interest as we need to, being defensive, but really an emphasis on playing offense, investing in America, growing our own economy, maintaining our competitive technological edge, and as we started talking about, making critical supplies in America.